Cool. Everyone, good morning. Thank you so much for coming, whether you drove in from across the bridge or flew in from out of the country. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it so much. This has been a labor of love and enthusiasm. The 2025 Road Show, we've never quite done anything like this before. And this actually has been a road show. For those of you who don't know, we've been driving around in my personal vehicle together, towing a U-Haul trailer, clear across the country for the last 10 days. This is the last stop on our tour. Our garage band is sounding really good, and we are extremely excited to share with you. Normally I think this is where I would go into talking about PIXERA and our features and format, and that's absolutely not what I'm going to do. That's not why we're here. We are here today to let our community talk. Community is big for us. Our creative partners are huge for us, and y'all tell the story way better than we do. These two gentlemen we've brought over, Michael and Timo, have been early PIXERA adopters and worked with the platform for years. Timo came reluctantly, and I'll let them tell you that part of it, but we're happy to have them. And I just have to really thank everybody who's helped us do this. Thank you to Volvoxx for hosting it. Thank you to Webster and Amanda from Brompton for coming to every stop of this with us and helping me put out fires along the way. Thank you to the Academy of Live Tech. Thank you to Row. Thank you to Fourwall and Solotech and Fuse. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, but that's what I got. So yeah, with that, I'm going to let Michael and Timo run away with it. You don't have to listen to me talk anymore. I encourage you all to ask questions. The morning session will be, we'll talk for about an hour. We'll break for coffee and bio break. We'll go till about 12:30. We have a traditional Polish lunch coming in. We're in Greenpoint. I'm told that's the thing to eat. Yeah, that's where we're at. Thank you all.
So thank you very much for your introduction, Miles, and thanks for having us. We really feel honored just to talk to you, and so that there's so much people gathered today here and at Volvoxx, and thank you Volvoxx for having us. Thank you Amanda and Webster for helping us every day. So yeah, it was a very interesting, inspiring journey, and thank you very much, Miles, for being our guide, father, and whatever. Yeah, Thank you very much. So today we don't want to do something like an actual PIXERA training. We want to talk about a little bit about our workflows and how we did it. We will show you some examples of our projects and why we did it, and how our workflows look like. So as Miles already said, so we'll have a little introduction, then we'll talk about a very, very tiny bit about the history of video design and concert and touring business, and after that we'll have some general things about a design roadmap for a stage design, and talk about a little bit about designing visual content, and then we'll dive into our workflows in PIXERA and talk about the news in PIXERA in version 25.1, and yeah, after that we can have some questions, and to let you guys know what we are doing and what projects we are working on. So we'll made something like a very small introduction video, and we're going to show this to you now. Yeah. So let me introduce myself. So I'm Timo Martens. I was born in Germany actually, but I'm living in Switzerland since 22 years right now. I'm in this business for now a little bit more than 30 years, and I'm doing stage design, lighting design. I'm a motion graphic designer and do some notch things, and yeah. So that's mainly it, and maybe Michael can introduce himself.
So yeah, I'm Michael, and some of them, of you guys, I met already yesterday in the evening. So I'm doing event, or I'm working in the event business, in event industry since around nearly 17, 18 years or so. I'm doing media server stuff since 2014, starting more with MA VPU, as far as you can call it a media server. But then also changed to some other products like Mbox and Hippo. I was more like the guy who worked with a DMX workflow, because I'm more coming from the lightning side and was really using the MA system a lot. But now since 2021, I'm just for every project we're just using PIXERA. In different workflows. We will come to that later. And I would say I did around 100 PIXERA shows in the last 3 years for nearly everything. So touring, TV shows, corporate shows, and so on. Yeah.
And together we found something like a company called Hook. And as we said, we do the stage design, lighting design, content creation. We do media server programming. We've got a pre-programming studio in Switzerland, and do also production management on mainly the concert and touring industry. So, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys a lot about the history of video design, because I think you all already know, but so we made this presentation just for everybody. So nevertheless, if you're a professional and already know what all about, but so I can shortly start. So I mean, the early beginnings of having video or video projection in the touring industry, as you all know, started in the early 70s. And so at this time there were only small projectors doing some camera feed, and it was quite limited to in regarding brightness, and so the limitations of those analog signals were quite high, so this was not very much interesting, and it was not very widely implemented, let's say. Then in the 1990s, it became more and more popular, so that iMac became something like a standard feature in concerts. And with the beginning of the LED walls that offered some superior brightness, the resolution was better, and something, it was more scalable, let's say. And early concerts like whatever, I think this is Rolling Stones, right? Yeah, this is Rolling Stones, or Pink Floyd or whatever. So they implemented those first iMac things. And after that, it live camera feeds and pre-rendered content were a little bit more merged together. Like a good example is the U2 Zoo TV tour. So where they had some LED screens showing some pre-rendered content, recorded content from the TV, and of course live camera feed. And this became more and more sophisticated, and in the 2000s, this was like the beginning of HD video, so everything became more brighter, even better resolutions, and yeah, so those large-scale productions really pushed those boundaries in visual storytelling, and of course, the video or video design became something like a storytelling tool in the concert and touring business. And so, as I said, it's iMac and pre-rendered content merged together and became, let's say, in the 2010s, we had something like a new screen quality, LED screens. So you were able to use transparent LED screens. We had curved LED screens. We have like a multi-dimensional event with the starting of AR or XR elements in the show design. So overall, it became like a multi-dimensional show environment, let's say. So today, it's a lot of AI stuff coming to those design components. So we have like AI generated content. We have AI driven camera systems, and so this means now with all those software, we are able to do hyper realistic backgrounds in concert stages, and yeah. And what the future brings, you never know, but you probably have some suggestions. And of course, it will AI will get more and more important and more powerful to use for content generation or whatever. And yeah, so this is it. Let's just have a quick journey to the design roadmap for a stage design. So this means how we work and how is this roadmap. So if somebody's calling us, what do we actually do? And in our case, it all starts with a phone call from a management or the artist himself, and he calls us, or the management calls us and says, "Are you ready to make a call with artist whatever, XY?" And then we try to get in contact with him and make our first phone call, and we will talk about, okay, what's the scale of those shows, how is the whole equipment traveling? Does it mean we have like 10 trailers? Do we have like 25 or 100 trailers? What's the financial situation? So how is it budget like? And so we'll pick up, we'll ask all those questions and try to get a better understanding of the whole thing, which is in the mind of the artist. And so after this, we'll try to schedule a meeting with a wider team. So we'll have the production designer, maybe the management, or maybe some technical suppliers to talk to, and try to put all those bits and pieces together. And when this is done, so we'll try to table our ideas and creatives and draw some first state of the design and some kind of a visual proposal. And then we send this over to the artist, and of course it's always better to talk about this design and how all those elements are meant to be and what they do and how much they cost and what are the possibilities of regarding scalability. And then we try to fix all this and do the final plans so that we can have the quotation from all those technical suppliers. And Then we will get into the planning phase, let's call it like this, so that we make all those detailed plans. We'll do the lighting plots. We start to plan our visual content. So we do some kind of a storyboard. We actually start on the technical side with all those planning, and on the design side to prepare for our pre-programming and to have the show put together. So then we'll go to the build phase, and this means so we have if we have to build some metal structures for carrying some fixtures or whatever, so we're taking care of this. We are doing we start to build and create the visual content. We try to get all the music from the artist, and so that we can start with the last phase of we do some pre-programming. We'll have the video stuff integrated into our previs, and so this is where the magic happens and all things come together so that we are ready for the rehearsals. And when we've done the rehearsals, we'll have like our first show, and hopefully it will be all fine, and so that we can just do some corrections, many artists have maybe some requests, and we will fulfill all those things and try to have the best show we can. And so this is where we will tweak this every day during our tour, and then it's done.
Hopefully.
Yes. So just a few things about designing visual content. So it's a very quick thing. So they are just like 8 big things to remember, or maybe 8 good things to have in mind. So the first thing is that avoid pre-mixed edits, means don't go and buy some $3 video loops from whatever Video Hive and play them. So just think about doing something own, or maybe talk to a friend or whatever. But so stock footage is not very nice, let's say, in most of the times. Then the second thing is to maintain something like a visual consistency. So this means it's always better to have something like a red line in your visual design, and so maybe you can do something like a color palette which fits through the whole show, so that if somebody's looking at your visual design, then it should be like this, yes, a red line, and it should be like it's it should look like it's meant to be. The next one is about that to respect negative space, and this means less is often more, because you have many pixels. You don't have to fill all those pixels, so it's better to have some space around your if you have something like an object or something like a dynamic thing or whatever, some thing going on in your visuals, then try to have some space, because it's like when you have a lot of musicians and they all play together, and it's this would be like very noisy. So it's all about having some space. The other thing is that it's always better to avoid white backgrounds, because you can have white backgrounds in your PowerPoint presentation or something like this, but it's not very good to have it on stage unless you really wanted to, because I mean you can do some flashes or bumps with white LED screens, of course, but white screens will always have an impact to the lighting situation, and maybe you got lasers or whatever, so it in most of all times it will just kill the vibe on stage. And if you do visual then it's better to think in layers. So this means you will have something like a background, you will have something like a medium layers to put some visuals on, and of course you will have something like an overlay so that you can mix them, that you can play with them, and that you just have some variety in your visual stuff, so that you're just able to change this whenever you like to. Then try to enable the visual energy. This means if someone is playing a slow song, a very intimate song on their piano, so then it's not very nice to have visuals like flashing around and do a lot of dynamic stuff. So just go with the music, go with the flow. And if you're done, then just try to name your files correctly, because every media server operator will love you if you don't have the final version of final version 10. So this is always very good. And I mean, we will later come to the workflow, so then it makes much sense to have a strict name consistency. And the last thing is just the file delivery. So just make sure that everything is okay. Check them before you hand them over to the media server operator, because it's it's always very bad and very sad. So if you hand over a hard disk, and in most of all files there's a missing alpha channel or whatever, so some render distortions, I don't know, it's annoying to check them as a media server operator, because I think it's your turn to do it. So, but now, let's have a look at our workflows, how we work with PIXERA, and why we choose those workflows. And we will give you an overview of some sample projects we have done. So we will start with the disguise days. So I made a tour design, which was mainly built in all those visual content was created in Notch, and so in those days it was not possible to use something else than a disguised media server. So I'm going to show you a small example. As I said, we used disguised media servers, a lot of Notch integration, so all those neon things were animated in Notch. We had a lot of live cam integration, and it was all triggered by MIDI triggers from the drums actually, and from the DJ. And but after working with this guy, so it was more like a personal thing, so I had to choose another media server. So I was working in Switzerland for BMW. We did something like it was during the pandemic where we did a streaming show. So BMW wanted to show their new cars, and that's when I first met Michael. And so we were sitting on the stage, and we were talking about media servers, and he said, we bought some media servers too, and we bought a PIXERA media server. And I was like, okay. And so I was not very happy with this, and then a friend of mine came up to me and said, okay, Timo, now you have to change your team, or as I said, I wanted to change my team and my workflow. He said, why don't you give Michael a chance? And I said, oh, well, PIXERA, I don't know. if this will all work all fine, because Harry, like the boss of PIXERA in Austria, he's a very good friend of mine, and yeah, I talked to him a lot, and sometimes he was like, maybe it's not a good idea to use PIXERA in your workflows, but I talked to him on the phone, and he said, yeah, now we are quite ready. It's now we came to a point where we can say, okay, PIXERA is a great product, just try to use it. And I called up Michael to do a project which is, it's a radio show. It happens every year in Switzerland, in Zurich. And this is a perfect example for the timeline workflow, which everybody knows from. What's a good example? Maybe Pandora's Box or something like this, which is mainly timeline based. And we're going to show you an example of this thing, and then we'll talk about it. Oh, and play. So, and this was a perfect project to test PIXERA and, of course, Michael as well. His skills, so it's there are like 800 square meter LED screens, and the media server had to play back all those audio files. So it's a playback show, it's a playback radio show. So all click tracks, all multi-channel audio playback will come out of the media server, out of the PIXERA. We'll have like different or several countdown screens on stage to show the artist, okay, now it's time to go, or now it's time to leave. And there are several countdown screens for the director to see something like a timeline. The PIXERA media server works as a timecode sending machine and receiving it. So all the video playback, all the notch integration, and the iMac integration in the stage was made with PIXERA servers. And Michael called PIXERA if we can get maybe a support of them, because he was not sure if it's all if it will all work out fine. And I think I think PIXERA, the PIXERA guys, they were thinking, okay, maybe, yeah, let's give it a try. And so we were sitting all in this venue in in Switzerland, in Zurich in Switzerland, and we were sweating a lot, let's say, but it worked all fine. And now it's time for Michael to talk a little bit about the timeline workflow in PIXERA. Whoop.
Yes. So, yeah, we were sweating a lot, not because of everything, of something like Wang Swan. It was more like we never did a show like that. So basically, I didn't know a show like that, and also for PIXERA, I mean the notch integration came in 2021, I guess, or so, around that. So this project was in 2022, and especially we used for that also a better version of the 2.0 this times. So, and we used a lot of different new features for this project. So yeah, they like really did a great support, but in the end, it was good that there were like Oliver and like Rini came over to be there if something's happened, but like everything was running smoothly and fine. But maybe like you guys like who are media server operators as well, when you're doing a show like that with like, I don't know, 15,000 people, then live streaming to TV, everything comes out of the media server, really everything. So if the media server there was if the main and the backup system like are crashing or so because of something, then this show is really over. It's like you can send the persons home. So that is like a little bit, right now we did, I don't know, 6 or 7 of these events. Right now I'm more used to it, but like these days it was a little bit, scary to be like the master of hopefully not the disaster. So basically what we are like showing you here is not the Energy Star Night. The Energy Star Night was the first project what we did, what like was the video about. This is more the Energy Air. It's a similar project, so they have like every year like 2 different like events. One time the Energy Star Night, it's in a like venue and like in the winter or during the winter time, and they have like the same kind of event in an open air venue, even bigger. So it's I think around 850 to 900 square meters of LED in an outdoor venue in a stadium. So, but generally the like the event itself, it's basically the same. And what we're going to show you here now is a little bit my workflow and like how I'm working with PIXERA. So basically, I just like scrub around, then you get an impression of how the timeline like looks, how many events there are, how many clips there are. It's around, I would say, 2.5 terabyte like of content, like in a render environment from 8,500 to like 2,500 pixel. So the input map or the output map, it's like 3 4K outputs. It's not that much because like they are using, because it's an outdoor venue, they are using like, I think 10 millimeter stuff, 10 millimeter stuff. So like it's not that like high resolution, but it's like very complex in like programming because like everything, as I said, is out of the media server, every commercial break and so on. There is a generally fixed like fixed like running order for the whole event. So nothing's like changing after like all rehearsals. So that's why we choose the timeline workflow, because like you just have to, I really, if you like see in the show file, I just have like pause, generally just pause cues. There are some place cues, I come to that later what they are doing, but basically it's just pause cues. So like I just have to hit go, 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 and during the show, really, I'm not doing anything except, for example, sometimes like putting the live input in it, or like do some camera correction. I also will explain that later. In general, my workflow is to have, and this was also a question from yesterday, to have like as much layers as like I need. So I mean, you see this like the structure of the LED walls. This gives you a lot of possibilities to play back live IMAX feeds. So there are like a lot of like scenarios where you can play it back. For example, like on these towers, on one of these LED screens, on both LED screens, over the whole area, like mirrored or so. And like Timo had some like ideas for that. So like he designed just like a PDF preview where you can like see, or where he told me, okay, maybe we can place some like IMAX feeds there, and we have some different setups for that. And as PIXERA don't need any render power for a layer which is in generally not playing back anything, you can basically create as many layers as you want. So even if the show file is like 300 layers or so, it won't take any like power consumption or like resource power, as long as nothing is placed on the layer or is nothing doing with that. So that gives you the possibility to think in the pre-programming or in the like preparation of the show, okay, how can I create my layer? What should like what is the possibility like, or what are the different setups? And then like when I'm sitting together with Timo and he like have a wish, for example, to put like, I don't know, live feed over the whole canvas, I just have to drop the container on the right layer and I'm completely done. I don't have not to create something, some feed maps or like perspectives or so. Yeah, exactly. I'm doing that like everything. I do it everything before. So, but like first, generally the content itself is delivered and you might know it from other projects, in an input map. So like all screens, like or all video screens are placed in one big file. So, and there are maybe some like Disguise users from the past and so on, and they are like, I would say there is like the biggest difference between Disguise and PIXERA is a little bit the way of thinking how we map content to different screens. Because I would say in Disguise, I'm not a Disguise operator at all, so like it's just a little bit what I heard or what I saw in some videos. In Disguise, you map content to screens, and in PIXERA, you map screens to content. So basically, you don't like cut out. I mean, you can do also that I will show you later, but in general, you don't like cut the content and like drag the content around. It's more like that the content stays on like one like big file or like one big layer, and then you drag the screens or the perspectives of the screens onto the content. So I will show you that as an example with like here the input map. So basically you just can choose here in the preview window, you can just choose one perspective group. A perspective group or a screen group, better more, is like a group that contains different screens and their perspectives. So, for example, you can just have a screen group with just, for example, the middle screen. And then if you play back the layer on it, it will just be shown on the middle screen. You can also like have a screen group with all screens and don't like move the perspectives around. Just stay at this as it is in a real environment. And if you drag now like content over the whole space, it will exactly like will be shown on the LED screens as it is in the preview. Also when there are different pixel pitches. So like in general perspectives are more bounded to like size of the screens, because I mean if you, for example, put a line over it, it doesn't matter if this one is 10 millimeter and this one is 5 millimeter. The line has to be straight over the whole screens. So, but in like input maps, it works a little bit differently. So, like in input maps, I created a new screen group with all my screens. They are like part of the input map, which are basically all screens. And then you can dive into the, like, they call it inner compositing. And I'm now like switching to a different content because that makes more sense than just like a color place. And now you see more than or less that all like screens are now placed to the different parts of the content. I can maybe better show you that with the test image. So, I mean, this makes more sense. So, and PIXERA, as you might know, normally like perspectives in PIXERA are like centered to the middle of a screen or the middle of the perspective. For an input map, that makes no sense at all, because like every time when you get an input map of a content designer, like the starting point of each screen is in the upper left corner. So for that, we have a new functionality which came in like I think 2.0. It's a 2D oriented workflow. So what we are gonna generally do then, set like the layer origin to absolute. In standard, the layer origin is bounded to a home screen, to set to a home screen. So like if you will play, for example, a video file just on the middle screen, and the origin is the home screen, it automatically goes on the like on the position where the home screen is. It's centered to the home screen. You can then like choose a scale unit mode. So if it like fill the screen, if it fits the screen, or it should stay in a resource resolution. But like for an input map, the resolution should be not scaled because the resolution is like set by a Lightning designer or the content designer. The origin should be on absolute because like it makes no sense to bound an input map to one screen. It should just say every time at the same time. And then we set the the layer settings to 2D oriented workflow. And also in my screen group, when I'm now diving into my screens here, for example, the circle, I also like hit the screens to 2D oriented workflow. And then you just have to tickle in the X, Y coordinates and the size of the screens, and you are done. And you automatically like grab the content of from the right position. So like an input map with this relative complex design, I mean, these are like around 15 screens or so. Like an input map with this design is done in, I would say, 2, 3, 4 minutes, and that's it, because you just have to like put in these coordinates and you're done. What will follow in the future is that there will be like an After Effects export import, so that you like can like export coordinates from, I think, After Effects like as a normal Excel, CSV, XML, I don't know, file, and then you can just like import it, and it will automatically, if the screens are the same name than in the After Effects file, or in the After Effects file, then it will automatically like puts this like in. This is nothing from now. It will come in the future. This is like something what they like want to develop. But right now you have to tickle it in. But I mean, as I said, it's done in like a very short time. So when we go now to like further to these other screen groups, because you see maybe I have like done here like thousands of screen groups. We more show you that on the example with the container for now. So generally, if I'm now like dragging the container, I mean, I just mapped some screens here. Don't care about where it is played. I just mapped it here that we have like a little bit an idea of like how it's looking in the real world, in the output world. So more interesting is looking into the preview window mode. So generally, I like set up some. I did a setup for like different like types of iMac situations, and it's exactly what I told you before. That like if Timo like say me, okay, I would like have to play back the iMac feed on all screens, or I have to mirror it, or I have to like just like do it on the outer towers or so. I just have to drag the container on this specific layer. And the important thing is, I don't need 2, 3, 4, or 5 layers for that. Even if the like iMac feed has to be played back over the whole canvas, I just need 1 layer, thanks to perspective. And when I'm diving now into this perspective, let me short like see which perspective it is. It's that the problem is that it's a little bit, the naming is not from my side, not consistently, because like it's an old show file from 2023, and I reused it in 24, and then the naming was a little bit different. So the naming is from my side, and it's not completely consistent. But like just say this is the tower SR 1.2 and the iMac 12. So like when I'm dive into it, what I've done is just dragging 2 perspectives exactly on the same place. So the tower SL you see here is on the same place than the tower SR. So I drag it on the same place. It snaps also. And then you can like do a horizontal mirroring or vertical mirroring in the screen target information. So basically, you see that's exactly what I wanted to do is like having a mirrored iMac on the left and the right side, and I have just like created one screen group, one layer, and I'm completely done. The disguise workflow is also possible. I prepared something for that here. So that was also like made new in PIXERA 2.0. In PIXERA they call it like content mapping. So in general, content mapping you find in the mapping tab under content mapping, and if I'm diving into it, it's a little bit exactly the same like in disguise. So you have your basically your like source content or source layer where you grab content from. This is now like my iMac feed here. And you can place it on the output side. You can also resize it if you want to have a better overview. You can place it on the output side on every screen what you want. And also just part of it. So if I just like, for example, want on the other side, just want to have like a part of this live iMac feed, I can resize it on the input size or on the output size. So it's basically just an input-output mapping content regarding to content. And if we now like go back to the general timeline or the compositing tab, you can either put this mapping on a whole layer, so that the whole layer adheres to this content mapping, or you can drag this content mapping on each container, so that each container can have a different content mapping. And you can like basically create as much content mapping as you want. So this is more like the disguise workflow as a little bit the same. I mean, I don't know if it's exactly the same. As I said, I'm not a disguise user. But the thing is, you can now work basically with both ways. I love the perspective way more because I was grown up with it, I would say. I'm working the last 3 years with it. And I love it more because for me it makes more sense. And I use just the content mapping if I have to like divide content to different screens. So like, for example, if, I don't know, if one screen has to show 2 parts of a content which is placed on a different side. Because like the perspective thing is every time bounded to the size of the screen. So, and the content mapping can like split the content wherever you want. So I'm using just this if I really like need to spread content somewhere. So some other workarounds here in this show file is you may be like interesting why I have like these 3 screens here, and like in the real environment these screens were not there. These are generally fake screens. So fake screens for inputs. So my workflow is not to put a live input container directly on a timeline. I more like create these 4 different like fake screens, put my real, I mean it's just like now a test loop, as you may know, but normally there will like be placed the live inputs on these layers. And then I create layer references. They grab the texture of these layers, and I work with the layer reference in the timeline. So this workflow has like 2 positive things. The one thing is, thanks to this like preview, I will every time see which content is coming into the server or which live iMac feed is right now coming to the server. And the second thing is, if you guys may like maybe work with Notch in the past, you may know that like Notch is very like critical if it comes to contrast and brightness. So like you have this perfect notch loop, and every notch block looks very nice during the programming, and then you come to the real environment, especially like a bright location outside. You see the first time the notch block through the camera and you say, oh my God, what's happening? It's just like a white flash and something like that because like the contrast is too low and so on. So what I'm now doing is I have a color correction on each of these layers, and I map this color correction to a MIDI board. So with this, I can then just correct these 4 layers at the same time with a MIDI board, brightness, contrast, and so on. And thanks to this layer references, all inputs in the whole timeline are referenced to this layer, so will be corrected. So also the notch input and so on is every time just used by this layer reference resources. So for that, I can just show you what I'm meaning here. This feed is just a layer reference resource. It's called IMAC, and it references to the layer IMAC. So if I'm now doing a brightness correction on this, you see this one is the preview window is corrected because this is my input signal, but also the one on the IMAX is corrected. So also the one who is what is the input for the notch feed is corrected, and so on. So it references on the whole show file. The same is when I'm doing the same. I do I can show you later when we have maybe a notch file. I don't know. I didn't load the notch file from this show onto the server. As you see, I just grabbed 2 contents or so. The rest of the content is still offline. But the same is the same workflow is for my notch workflow. I don't place the notch block itself on the real screens. I have more a fake screen here, which is 920 by 1080, put the notch block on this fake screen. From there, I just do a layer reference, grab a layer reference, and I can play with the layer reference as I play with every other layer. So I can drag it around. I can also recorrect it. So even if the notch block is just black and white, and the designer forgot to expose me the RGB parameters or so on, I can then, because thanks to the layer reference, I can put a new RGB color effect on the layer reference, and I can play around with the RGB faders even if the notch block is not touched. So that's a little bit my workaround. You can, for sure, place directly the notch block on the screens. It's working the same, but my workflow is more to have this phase screen. Also, on this production, the video director, which is doing the live video cutting for the streaming, he wants to have every time the notch feed as an input in his van, OB van, to sometimes to creatively send this out to the stream. So with this, I can just route this small screen to another place on the output, give it to the director, and even if I'm not showing it on the whole venue, he every time have the notch feed as soon as I'm using notch, and he can use it for any creative things. So what we're then last seeing here on the screen is the countdown screen. The countdown screen is more something what I did in Control. Basically, it just counts down the time to the next cue. So in Control, you have a timeline info module, and the timeline info module gives you specific things of the timeline. So the actual time, the countdown to the next cue, what is right now the operation, and so on. It can put you out everything, this timeline info module. In my opinion, I just need the countdown, and I can then route the countdown time to a text resource, or I have to see where it is, get resource folders, media, no, get resources it is, I think. And somewhere it is, countdown, there it is. And there it's set to set text. You see here is the connection to set text. So as soon as I connected it, the countdown text here is shown the exact time to the next cue, and I can place this text as a normal text resource anywhere on any screen. So like I'm done in a minute with every like countdown screens. So it's just like node-based root systems and so on. There are like thousands of things to say. One thing I wanted to point out as well is that we have, this is now black because I'm getting DMX from the desk. Let me just like switch this off. So basically what we also have like is a special header. And the special header like contains some logos for like sponsors and so on. It has to be shown every time. So, but there are different headers to like what happened in the show. So, for example, if like the main sponsor Swisscom have like 5 minutes commercial break, on the header they have to be just shown Swisscom. And normally we have like the basic header which contains all the sponsors and scrolling and scrolling. This header is in a separate timeline. I come a little bit later why I didn't like put this in the main timeline. And you can trigger with play cues, and that's why there are some play cues as well in the whole show. You can trigger with special cues in one timeline, another timeline. So what happens in this play cue is just that I say, okay, trigger the timeline header as a pause mode, because like it's just looping. You just have to like go to a pause status there. And you choose like cue time, and then you can like choose one of the cues of the timeline, and you can set a fade duration for that. This is also new like ability to like set a fade duration. So as soon as this one is triggered, I don't know if I'm like, I go here just like to the welcome header, it just like flashes there because the content is not there. But as soon as I'm now like hitting this play cue on the main timeline, it will automatically fade to the like status of this cue in the other header timeline in 1 second. So that's also a little bit the general structure of PIXERA. I mean, you may know it, but generally timelines are also stacked over each other than layers. So it's basically, I would say, layers are subfolders from timelines, something around that. You can also have, with the server license, I think the playback license has just 2, but with the server license, you can have as many timelines as you want. So it's just your like boundary of like imagination what you want to do with it. You can also, like for a better overview, like shorten this timelines. Then you just have like control about play, pause, and stop. If you want to have also control about opacity and so on, then you need to unfold it. But in general, when you just want to have an overview of your timelines, you can like close it down. When it comes to DMX, for example, for like this event, we need like a main intensity fader for everything, because like the rest is all like done with timeline, but the main intensity fader is very important for the lighting director, that he can like see through the camera like how bright the LED screens are. And for that, I mean, in the future, or in the near future, it's already like implemented right now, but not in the just in the render engine, not in the GUI. You can also have DMX controls of like every screens in the output tab. This is right now not possible. The like easiest way to do that is just like do a black layer over everything, which like is from 0 to 100. You can dim then just the opacity of all screens. And like with the DMX mapping tab, I will come to that later if we speak about DMX programming. In the DMX tab, then you can like switch the way of how it should like work, so that like DMX value 0 is mapped to opacity 100 and the other way around, so that you have like a, how you can say it, reverse, inverted like mapping of the DMX. But you may see if I do the main dim, the header stays on, because the header has to be like dimmed separately. This is more like all logos you may see there are white. White. And if you see it through the camera, sometimes the content has to be like a little bit more bright. And in the past, we did like dim everything together, but then all time the logos are like just flashing in your eyes. So we like separate it now. And what you can do for that is just to map the brightness value of these header timelines. So I put a brightness effect on the layer of the header, and I map the brightness of the header timeline separately to DMX, so I can now like do a separate dimming of just the header timeline, which is like not like bounded to the like general blackout or like the main dimming from the main dimmer. So that shows a little bit that it's very flexible how you're working. So you can work, I mean, the other way would be like put the header timeline as well in the main timeline, then you don't have to like trigger it, but then maybe they're like very long containers. And then you can, in the main timeline, you can just like map the brightness of this header layer from the main timeline to DMX. You don't need to do like more timelines. For me, it's a better overview. What's new in 25.1 is, maybe as an operator you will know, as soon as the lightning guys come into the venue and you're playing back content, they will do this with the master fader because they want to do like presets and so on. So I'm now saying, hey, I can't see anymore. Like everything is dark. I cannot work on my timeline. The old way was to go to the video switcher guy and say, can you please like do a black on the Aquilon that I can play back everything. The new way is that you can like do a solo preview of selected timelines in your preview. You see, the output is still dark from the main server. So the output is still affected by the dimmer. So if I like now playing here with the dimmer, you see the output is affected. But in my preview, just my May timeline is shown. So I can work with my May timeline also if the lightning guy like dims everything down. So so it makes like the working in the preview and like output-wise what you see in the real environment a little bit more flexible. You can also send more than one timeline to a preview. To the solo preview. So if I, for example, hit this timeline and the header and put it in solo mode, now you see also the header timeline is shown and just the black timeline is like grayed out. So this is also what I'm doing in a live show now. So I'm every time working in a live show in the solo mode and put every timeline except this main dim in the solo mode so that in my preview all the content is bright at every time, and here is just like the control of the output. Just like something you may know, just something about our setup here, and this is also my setup like in a real environment most of the time. Basically, PIXERA can handle the user interface and the outputs on the same server. This is generally no problem. I would suggest, especially like if the show gets bigger, to have like the director on a separate computer than an output server. The director can be, sorry Connor, can be an own build server or a laptop or so on. It doesn't need to have a lot of power. It renders just the preview, and like PIXERA, as soon as you import like a very big file, PIXERA in the background automatically translate it to like special like preview files. So in the preview, it will just play back the preview files. These are much lower resolution. You can choose also the content newest in also, I think 24.1. I don't know if it's also in 2.0. You can set Notch LC as a preview file resolution file. So also the preview is like played back in Notch LC. You can choose also like hub. I don't know why you want to choose ProRes or VP9. Maybe they're like it's something from the past. I don't know, because it just like takes so much CPU power. Or maybe you have a laptop which is like with an Intel graphic card or something like that, then it might be like a way to do it. But in my opinion, every time I choose Hub, Alpha, or Notch LC for the preview. So thanks to that, your laptop don't need to have like high specs about like graphic cards or something like that. Except when you like playback Notch, because also Notch is rendered in the preview. You can also in the newer version set specific layers that they don't have to be rendered in the preview. So you can say, for example, okay, I have a laptop which is like this graphic card is fucking stupid. It may not render Notch as well. So, but output-wise, I have a A6000 ADA server. So you can like tickle that on, and then just in the preview, this layer will not be rendered. So like the graphic card load is very low with Notch, but output-wise, it will be rendered. So you're like a little bit more flexible with that. So the laptop then just play back these preview files. You can set also the resolution. It's just like maybe 720p or so, or even less. You can set the resolution as you want, and then it just have to like handle all the controlling stuff and nothing more. I would suggest every time to use a PIXERA server, or at least a good director server. Like for example, in our director server, we use either so here the setup is like a PX2 Gen 2 for like a director setup, and a PX4 RX with the A6000 ADA as an output setup. So all the screens are mapped during the output server. And we have to like mention a little bit more. These screens were like built in by Volvoxx, and they also have a like PIXERA server. So what I did yesterday is just grab this server into my network, distributed the content, the little content what I have, and mapped these screens in about like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then I'm done. So like you're like very flexible within an output mapping for that. And in general, the output mapping, I don't know if you already see it, the output mapping in generally works the same as the content mapping. So like you have in your live tabs, you have your servers, and you just like drag, don't want to do that now, but you just drag an output onto a screen, then the screen is mapped on the output, and then if you like choose the screen, this is now not mapped, but let's choose like one of these screens who are mapped. These are these ones. Then you choose the right server, and you see now they are mapped. So if I like just like turn it around, then it's like automatically mapped on the like dragged on the output side. And this is like everything what output mapping is. So like really fast. What comes then new in like what came new in 2.0 is what it is called? Sorry, the usage presets. So in generally, the usage preset contains all input and output mappings, all content mappings as well from the special server. So you can, thanks to that, if you have, for example, one director setup and 3 output server and 1 backup server, you can easily send the usage preset from any server to this backup server, and it will take over the backup scenario. So you can just like do right click and say copy usage to another server, then the server will take over or will do the same. If you do copy, the server will do the same than the original server does. And you see it here. These were my original servers in the show file. So if a server is lost, it don't disappear anymore. That was the case like in the past. It stays there and give you just a sign, okay, the server is lost. So you can also like copy a usage preset of a lost server, and that makes sense because normally in a backup scenario, you lost the server in any kind of way. You can do that for like fixed installation. So for example, if you are like don't want to like do this like backup switching by yourself. You can also do that automatically. So you can, like for a machine, you can put in here a special IP address, what is the backup IP, and now you have a sign here from the backup server. So it will show you, this server is my backup server, because from any other server, it will take over the backup in a failure case. And then PIXERA automatically looks, I don't know, Connor, how often it looks, like every second or so, if the servers are available. But like it's more like a heartbeat thing. So if the PIXERA don't recognize the server anymore, there will be an error message and automatically switch to the backup system. One last thing about the backup scenarios. I mean, we can speak about that also like in the afternoon a little bit more if you like are interested in that, and I have to show you a little bit. You can. I already did this on another training. There is a so-called live system tab. So like I just, like for your information, I just built a user interface for the energy these times so that I can like jump to every queue. This is easily made in PIXERA Control. And honestly, I have to say, I'm not the PIXERA Control guy, so I'm not like Lua programmer or so at all. I just use the pre-built like modules for like show control and so on, and for overviewing things, because like that's by far enough for me. So, and you can easily like create a user interface, and we have like a new element which called live system tab. So you can import this live system tab here, and you have an overview of your output server. So this is like the output server from like our roadshow now. And if I want to add another live system server, you can then like add this live system tab here. Where is it? Here, you can drag it around, and then in the live systems tab, now also the new server which is placed here, which is normally not in our like system, like you can like connect it to them, and now you have an overview of this server with all the resolutions. So don't ask me why right now they saying like the frames per seconds 95.99987 blah 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 blah. This is like definitely something like a bug or so, which has to be like controlled. But it gives you a complete overview of all output, of all like frames per second, what is happening on the server. And if you tickle in a backup IP, it don't has to be an automatic backup. Just like tick in the backup IP, and through the live system tab, you can now like push on the bottom, switch to backup, and then you as an operator have the control which server is in charge. Don't have to do it automatically, but just one click on the bottom, and the like backup system will automatically like get the usage presets from this server, will automatically take place, and like yeah. And
is it possible to control this via DMX or something, or like an OSC control or something like this?
It might be. I think a live system. Is it possible to do a backup switch via USC or DMX or so? Yeah. I mean, basically, you can program everything in PIXERA Control. So PIXERA Control, generally, if you like fold up here, fold out the live systems. Let me shortly see it. So live system, get live system, then you have a control of everything. You can apply usage preset to it. So with like commands, and you have like a DMX module in PIXERA. So you can import the, where is it? Oh, SACN, yeah, sorry. The SACN in Universe. So basically you can just like scribble you a short Lua module where like the SAC in address, I don't know, XYZ is mapped to the usage preset. And like in this module, you will say that like if SACN is coming in that value, then usage preset blah on this live set should be applied. So basically you can like do anything, but it's not like implemented in the user interface itself. Yeah.
Maybe it's time for a break.
Exactly. Just like one more thing for the backup, and then we're doing the break, is that you can also link backup scenarios with control actions. So, for example, if you're doing a backup switch, it is maybe necessary and also is needed to switch also a matrix, or like an Equilon or so on. So you can then put in a matrix, like for example the Lightware matrix. This is a typical module in PIXERA which I'm using very often. And then you can put in here a lost control action. So if the system is lost, what should happen? Or if the system is back available. So if you have automatic backup, also PIXERA can be in charge of switching the matrix and so on. So this is really a full backup system. But as I said before, I would suggest this just for live, for fixed installation where there's no operator. If I'm the operator, I will want to be in charge for switching something to backup.
So let's talk about the DMX workflow we've got in PIXERA, because I think it recently had something like a brand new user interface, or a new interface for the DMX workaround in PIXERA. And I don't know how it's in the US, but especially in Germany and Switzerland, it's in all those TV shows, the DMX workflow is the way to work with media servers, because most of the time it's like the media server guys, they were handed over a hard disk from some content designers, and they have to work with this, let's say 100 backgrounds, or I don't know, for the whole TV series, if it's something like The Voice or whatever it is. And it's always about, let's say, most of those backgrounds look shitty somehow. So it's up to the media server operator to transform those backgrounds into something more beautiful. So you can maybe transform it regarding the speed or the size or the color or whatever. So it's all about this. And of course we will use, or we like to use, the DMX workflow. If it's a smaller tour, then it might be that Michael and we programmed everything together, but then just do it with a lighting desk, so that we can control, or we have a much smaller size at the front of house, so our footprint is smaller, and sometimes it's only me doing lighting and video on a tour. So Michael sometimes leave after the first show or the rehearsals, and so with controlling the media server with the lighting desk, you have all those advantages from, for example, the Grand MA, to work with presets, so you can easily use those referenced presets to do some screen arrangements, or do some color correction or something like this, and you can just press a button on the Grand MA just to achieve your transformation. And of course, it's another big advantage to use the effect engine of the Grand MA. So if we want to do something like a chaser or just a sinus on a intensity, or want to do some color effects, then it's quite easy to use the effect engine in the lighting console just to control all this stuff. And so we're going to show you a small example of our TV show we did, and here we go. Yeah. Michael, will you explain something about DMX workflow in PIXERA?
Exactly. So we have here now a project that is a TV show. That's a Swiss Music Award. You will may notice, like in this video, you saw this big, like diamond LED screen in the middle, and we have as well a LED band because it's like placed in a ice hockey stadium, and we also want to like put content on this LED band, and it's more like a smaller project, but like still important because it's a live video, a live TV show. And I resized the like project size here a little bit just to show you better how DMX workflow is done in PIXERA. So in PIXERA you have either on a timeline the possibility to put container or like resources on the timeline, as you saw in the timeline workflow. In a DMX workflow, you have the functionality of dominant resources. So dominant resources are in generally if you, for example, control opacity, position, effects, settings or so, then you will see the dominant resources with this like yellow square here. This yellow square is also, these layers are not controlled with DMX. If you change something in a user interface directly, you will also see this yellow square. But as long as you don't save these values stay dominant. So if you like scroll over the timeline and you have this yellow triangle on, then every time this yellow triangle will be on top of what's programmed in the timeline. It's a little bit the same like in the EMA. So if you have in the MA system these like red values in the background, then they are also on top of everything once controlled in a queue or so. So if I just like press escape, then all dominant resources will be like released, except the one who are like controlled by DMX. So, and you have the dominant resource assignment. So here in the front, normally you see here that everything which is played on a timeline will be like something like a short preview here. If you don't have something in a timeline and you work with DMX and you assign some content with DMX to this layer, it will also like shown there, but not on the timeline because it's dominant resources. And with DMX, we just use dominant resources if we control a whole layer. What was a little bit disgusting in the past with PIXERA is that patching a complete layer or even like 20 complete layers to DMX was horrible because like you have to tickle thousands of things and I want to control this and I want to control this. It takes like really hours of doing this. In 25.1, by the way, shortly information for you, 25.1, there is a new naming in PIXERA which started this year. Maybe Connor, you can explain shortly how the naming is changed. I mean, you are, I think, the better person for like explaining that why and like what is like basically the changing.
Yeah, I can explain it after.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So 25.1 is a beta version. It will be released in the next weeks. They are like right now testing it. I think there is a feature stop next week, so that the tests like are going into everything. They test like everything in the engine, and everything was changed in the user interface. But I used the 25.1 version since half a year or so, also in real environments, because if there is a bug or so, it's more regarding to the user interface that, for example, if you patch something, it is not 100% patched correctly, or like it shows you a different patch in the user interface that it's in the background, like it's patched or so. But the render engine itself, especially during show scenarios, is very stable. So I have no issues at all with using this beta version the last half year. I don't want to recommend anybody of you using beta versions in a live scenario, but I just want to tell you a little bit about my experiences, because the newer features helps me so much more and makes me so much faster during a live environment and I don't had anything, or I didn't have any like bad experience about using beta versions right now. So for me, it's every time it's like better to have these new features than using an official version. So what's generally new in the DMX patch? The DMX patch in general is completely new structured. So you have now a tree view of all layers, and it's also separate from layers into timelines. I think that was like that before, but the tree view is this tree structure is completely new. So you can unfold. These layers are the layers on the timeline, and if you unfold it, so you find here the timeline. So if you have layers on main, these are all layers which contain the main timeline. If you unfold it, then you see the layers. If you more unfold it, you see the whole parameters, and even there is a smaller view of, for example, resource assignment. So basically, this is the first thing, you have a better overview. Now, it is like that you just have to create one layer and have to set everything for this layer. So I have my standard DMX layer. It contains all the basic functionalities like resource assignment, opacity, blend modes, and so on. For sure, position, rotation, scaling. A new feature is also the scale factor. When you like think back to PIXERA, it was just possible to scale it in wide and high and depth. But the thing is, if you want to stay like pixel accurate or like more like aspect ratio accurate, it was really tricky to like zoom it. Now you have a scale factor with more like just like doubles the size or like with a factor, so you stay scale accurate. And if you want to like change the scaling, then you can scale wide and high separately. But I'm normally just working with the scaling factor. And then I have a basic color effect. The basic color effect is also new in PIXERA thanks to this DMX workflow. Because normally when I'm working with a desk, I'm just needing hue, saturation, value, contrast, red, green, blue, that's it. I don't want to have these like thousands of features with what you have with the PIXERA color correction effect, which is like shown on the layer settings. I really want to have like a small possibility, because with this I handle nearly everything. Then I have a cropping for sure, because cropping is also neat with DMX a lot. And to multi-FX. Multi-FX, I don't know if you already are used to the multi-effect. Multi-FX is more like a general effect, and on the first parameter you can select every effect which is in the PIXERA library. And even self-made effects. So if we like choose now the multi-effect and we see the first parameter of it, it will show you all effects which are placed in PIXERA. So you can choose one effect, and then the other parameters are mapped to the specific values which are controllable in the effect. So this is my basic DMX picture. It has, I think, 125 DMX values or so. Yeah, 125 DMX values. And then you can export this newly as a template. And this template layer can be used in every show file. You just have to reassign the layer to a new home screen, because the home screen in a different show file is for sure a different one, or also a screen group is a different one. But in general, you just like import this template effect out from a data, and you're done. And you can import as many layer as you want. I told you that before. And thanks to this tree structure, let me see, DMX patch. Thanks to this this structure, you just have to like change the start address, and then it's done. So let's do it. I will export this as a template. Let's do this on D. I call this basic layer Michi. So I will import it from template, select file. So it calls the same. And if you go now to the patch, you find here the patch, and it has also 125 DMX parameters. And then you just have to set a new start address, for example, universe 4, start address 100, and that's it. So it's basically the same like patching a fixture or so. The good thing now is that also with the newer version, you can export this layer as a Grandma 2 fixture or a GDTF fixture or a XML. There will be also export for Grandma 3. So basically, Grandma 3 understands GDTF, but the problem is in GDTF that there are some boundaries which are not readable or which are not like writable in the GDTF, which is needed for the Grandma to perfectly work. But this will be something in the next weeks coming. So I think when 25.1 is officially released, there will be also a Grandma 3 export. But right now, Grandma 2 export works very well, so you can export it. And the fixture build was completely restructured. So you really just have to import it to your ML, and it works. Color effects are mapped to color parameters. Position things are mapped to position. And it's not like in other media servers that when you imported it, you have like a video tab, and then you have like 20 sub-attributes, and you have to rebuild your whole fixture that it really works for you as a Lightning guy. So really, just export it, import it, and maybe, I mean, generally you can think about if now the cropping effect should be on a shader value or if it's a FX value. This is like something what you can decide. But the most of the features are mapped to what's logical in an MA environment. And also, it creates automatically sub-fixtures. So for example, the multi-FX, the 14-parameter multi-FX have 14 like values. If you would map this in just one fixture in the MA, then you will like really under FX, you have to like scroll down and like you completely lost your overview. So as soon as you import a multi-FX are mapped to a sub-fixture in MI. So the master fixture will contains everything like resource assignment and so on. And then the first sub-fixture just includes the first multi-FX, the second sub-fixture contains the second multi-FX, and you're done. And this is also like happened automatically. What's also like what's redone is the loading time of parameter, because PIXERA, when we come back to a timeline workflow, generally loads specific files which are happen in the future in the RAM, in the video RAM and the computer RAM. So it looks. You can decide how long it looks in the future, but a standard is like 5 seconds. It looks in the future. What's happened in the next 5 seconds loads this into the video RAM, so that if you like hitting this point, it's like on the millisecond, like playing back the content. With DMX, it is not possible, because DMX is like something that PIXERA don't know what you press on the M next. So the loading times from files is really improved. It's like 3 times faster than it was before. So like really, if you, for example, if I just you can like see on the screen, like put in the fader, and you see it's like really with no delay, it comes in. So this is really like an improved workflow or improved things in the engine with DMX workflow. So what Timo mentioned before, the good thing is on DMX workflow, if we stay in this live iMac feed, you can now like create just presets on an AMA system. So if I choose this layer, here I prepared like a preset called Soft Edge, and I like hit this layer, the Soft Edge is already done. And it's just like one thing, you are so much faster than in PIXERA, like grabbing some keyframes till the Soft Edge is accurate. I mean, for a show like the Energy Air, it makes no sense because normally we don't need Soft Edge, and if we need Soft Edge, it makes more sense to do this as a keyframe. But in a TV show where like in rehearsals you see things differently through a camera than it was in the pre-programming studio or even in the real environment, you have to correct it very fast, and you're in a lighting desk much faster. Also, most of the time in TV shows, you have to react because something has happened differently than it was planned. And you are so much faster with like cue-based things on an EMMA than like jumping around in a timeline. So, and what's nice in PIXERA, I think other media servers do this as well, but you can do with DMX a single layer crossfade. So I prepared something, I choose my two back layers, so we have like one output is mapped to the LED band and the main output is mapped to this back wall. And normally if I choose another content, it will just like flips to the other content. If I now choose like 1 second of fade time, and you see it, you can just choose another content without using any other layers. You can just swap around with the content and it's like smoothly fades to the other content without using 2 layers. Exactly. Basically, I would say for the DMX workflow, that's it in general. These layer templates, like this is a very new feature, but you can also now in the, let me see, initial timeline values, set that PIXERA automatically loads preload effects if you create a new layer. So normally in the past it was just that the new layer has no effect in it. It was just like position scaling and rotation and opacity for sure. But now you can decide that every time when you create a new layer, automatically the basic color effect, the cropping effect, and one multi effect is added. And that's also my like structure. It doesn't matter if I like work with DMX or with the timeline workflow. These three effects are, I would say, I handle with this like 90% of my shows, because in normal cases you don't need more for that. So this is automatically loaded when creating a new layer, so you don't have to like take care about like grabbing something on it when you need it. Last thing about DMX, what is new, this is like a CITP exchange. So CITP exchange, I know every user which uses Grandma 3, they are not able to use it because Grandma 3 don't implement it right now. But when you still work with Grandma 2, CITP is a very nice thing for having a structure over, or like a better overview over the files which are contained in the show file. So if you patch different files to DMX and do like CITP thumbnail exchange requests on the EMMA, then automatically file names and thumbnail previews will be placed on the right place in the EMMA, so you see the files in the EMMA where they are placed in which folder and so on. One last thing. about DMX, it was also in the past very, very, like, how I can say it, it takes a lot of time to patch all these files to DMX. This is also new. You just have to give the folder one DMX ID for the folder, so for example 30, and you can then either assign DMX IDs and automatically in the order of they are placed in the folder, all files are like mapped from 1 to maximum 255, sorry, or 256 basically, because it starts at 1. Or you can name your files with an ending of 001, 002, 003, and you can say assign DMX IDs using file name, and PIXERA automatically looks which is the ending of the file name in place and map it to the right DMX values. So if you have a good library with good naming and so on, that will be automatically matched to the right DMX channels.
Name your files correctly.
Name your files correctly, exactly.
Do you want to talk about the new features, like the new play modes, or do you want to do it afterwards?
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry about that. We got a new version really last week when I was in the plane flying to Nashville. They sent me a new version. And this includes the new DMX file modes, play modes. So right now, or like till last week, just play, pause, loop, and stop were possible. The problem is if you just imagine if you have a flash or so, where from left to right, like an overlay just hits the wall every time. And every time when you play Flash, it should one time hit the wall. Then in the past, you have to program 2 queues, because one time doing play, the next one doing stop, because next time when you hit play, you have to restart the content. Now it is possible to have new play modes which are, which depend on the opacity of the layer. So there are new playments called restart after opacity is 0, or just play if the opacity is over 0. For example, if you want to preload a content, a very big size content, you can in one queue preload the content. In the next queue, you just hit the opacity to 1 and the clip starts to play. These play modes will be also implemented in the next versions into the user interface. So because also this restart if opacity is over 0 functionality, it's really helpful in the user interface as well. So right now it's just possible with DMX, but in the next week, so I think till 25.1 is officially released, it will be also controllable in the user interface for timeline workflow.
And do you want to talk about what's it called? I don't know the name, but if you, that it jumps on top on the layer structure, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but this is more like a timeline. Yeah, this is more like a timeline feature, but I can show you it. Maybe some of you are watchout users, and watchout have functionality called move to top at play, means that if this timeline is played back, it will it don't look at the timeline structure itself. Every time when this timeline is played and you hit this mode on, then this timeline will be played at topmost. So this is also something for if you want to program a bigger bump with more contents, I would more suggest to program this on a timeline and just hit this timeline to play, and this jumps on the top, and after it stops, it will go back in the original timeline structure. Just one thing in general, and that's I'm very impressed as well, because I didn't see it at all. Normally, you should like stay in the right frame rate. So for example, in Germany or like in whole Europe, we need 50 frames per second, and we render all content in 25 frames per second or 50 frames per second, depends on like how accurate it has to be. We are now using German content, so 25 frames per second, and we are outputting here 60 frames per second. And if you look back to the back wall, there's no struggling at all. So PIXERA handles different frame rate for content very well. I was very impressed when I saw this yesterday the first time and see, this is like very nice that like everything is happened in the system with frame blending and so on if the frame rates don't matching. Normally, if you like work for bigger projects, everyone should like deliver the content correctly. But especially like for corporate, yeah, you are laughing, especially for corporate events or so, I got so many videos from somewhere over the world, and like the American companies deliver 60 frames and we are outputting 50 frames, and the new one comes with 25 frames and so on. And normally if you re-render it in, for example, just in media encoder, then it will struggling. Then you get problems. So if I see this now, I have to say I will play back all original files just in this frame rate, and PIXERA handles the rest. I'm very impressed about that. One thing that really don't have to do something with the DMX workflow is more the new functionality to convert files. So maybe you know it that before you can drag content to content transcoding files and it will be transcoded and so on. You can now do it just with a right click and say transcode, and you see you can also transcode it in PIXERA directly in Notch.lc. So it has directly a transcoder for Notch.lc, and like the tests showing that even PIXERA is faster than the media encoder in transcoding it. I mean, it depends on the hardware for sure, but like if you have the same hardware, then PIXERA is faster. And if you transcode it, it will be placed in the file structure on the computer directly beside the original file. And in the file versioning mechanism from PIXERA, you would then have the choice to choose the other version of the file. So it will like plop out the Notch.lc version. You can just choose the Notch.lc version, and in the whole timeline, everything will be exchanged. So for example, if you're programming a timeline and you got an MP4 file which is like very long or so, you can hit transcode. You can then work just with the MP4 file on the timeline and can like resize it and can program it. And as soon as the transcoding ready, you just choose the other file, and all the timeline it will be replaced. Also, this like thing with file versioning works for sure, as Timo mentioned before, like if you name your files correctly, if your name is the same, and at the end another version will be like added, so for example underline v2, then automatically PIXERA knows that there's a new version, and you can just exchange the version to the new version. And if the version is corrupt or like something is wrong, or I don't know, the client says, oh no, I want version 1, then you can just like choose version 1 and everything is done. What's new in 25.1 in this case is that you may know that watch folder were already possible with PIXERA control. With the new 25.1 version, it's also implemented directly in the user interface. So my workflow in general is have a second director, or like a third director if you have already a backup director in the network. This is my laptop. The laptop is connected to a Dropbox, and the watch folder is set up to this Dropbox folder. So if Timo like loads up new content, PIXERA automatically recognizes that in this Dropbox folder there is a new version, load it down from the laptop, and it distributes the content to the director. And I don't have to be aware of any new content. It will automatically do everything and just have to like work with the files, and you're done. And the structure of subfolders will be also implemented in PIXERA as well. So if you, for example, set the media encoder, the topmost folder, to this watch folder scenario, and Timo will create some subfolders in it, PIXERA will automatically create subfolders with the same naming in the folder structure of PIXERA. Yeah?
For versioning, is it just _v?
You can decide. In the general settings, or I have to see where it is exactly. exactly because I normally don't change it, because in my things it's always the same. I mean, you can like change it also. You can change it in general, global settings. It's somewhere in the user settings. I don't really know where it exactly is. Here, file versioning. And you can decide what's the suffix, how it begins, how it ends, and if it's case sensitive or not. Yeah, and you can control it general, so for the whole project, and you can even set a different folder to a different file versioning like mechanism. Because I don't know, two content creators are working, and the one say X1 and the other one say V1, then you can say, okay, let's look here. I mean, it makes no sense in general, but let's look here for V1 and here for X1. Yeah. Yeah, that's basically it from the DMX workflow.
Yeah, maybe it's good to mention that there's also the possibility of playing content backwards, because there was a big request for it was not possible before, so it was just possible to play content or loop it or whatever. So and now you can play content backwards.
Yeah, I mean you could have done it before with like doing the speed of -1. Then it would possible, but now you have also the new play modes. You don't have to like change the speed. You just have the new play modes, backward loop, forward loop, and all the play modes what I mentioned before are also possible like using backwards. So yeah, there are like 10 or 12 new play modes, including like play backwards, loop backwards, and yeah, all these things like which depend on the opacity of a layer. Okay, so we speak now something about the hybrid workflow. I just have to shortly open the other show file. That means that our like outputs will shortly be gone, just that you know that. But Timo can like start with a short introduction, I would say.
Can you switch the presentation onto
As
the
soon
screen?
as is
Okay.
PIXERA's back. Yeah. Yeah, you can. Now you are on.
No.
Yes, you are. Sorry. You mean this? Sorry.
Okay, so let's come to the last point of our workflows. It's the hybrid workflow, and this is like the workflow we use the most. So this means we are using the timeline workflow in combination with the DMX workflow. So let's start with a short introduction, and then we'll talk about this in detail. So this is a tour we made with this workflow, and it will give you an impression. So why we are using the hybrid workflow is that we can use the best of both worlds, let's say. So we can use the Grand Array as a trigger for all our sequences or layers in the timeline, and we can do it vice versa. So this means when we have something like we want to make sure that when we press play at the media server, then we want to maybe also start a sequence on the Grand Array. So this is why we then just sending controls from the PIXERA media server to the Grand MA lighting console, just to make sure it's all on time. So if we press play, then the lighting cue starts and the content starts as well. And yeah, now it's up to you, Michael, to explain something more about the hybrid workflow we're doing. It's mainly meant to, I mean, you can do it in the timeline workflow and the DMX workflow as well, but so if we maybe want to use, or if we want to control something like virtual lighting and real lighting fixtures in combination, we want to do some real-time content, we want to use the notch implementation, and we want to control it from a single point. So let's say it's our lighting console, then this is our workflow. We choose to control all those parameters.
Okay, we have here like a light different show file for that, because like this was a show file which is basically perfectly used for a hybrid workflow. And this was a design by Timo for like a German artist with a like main back wall, and there were 18 so-called splattern, like just like different size LED screens with like very low resolution over the whole like stage. And as I saw this design, I say, wow, that's so nice to use these splattern as a lighting fixture, like so, like to have some flashing elements or like color effects on it and so on. So we have then, and the question was, I think from you yesterday, if it's like, if it's easy to have like different independent things which are controlled in PIXERA by DMX and which are controlled by timeline. So we have exactly this scenario here. We have a main timeline, and this main timeline is generally a normal timeline workflow. So this is locked to a time code. I will shortly explain the different, not use cases, different, how I can say it, different like possibilities to work with timecode in PIXERA. So the one thing is you can just like lock one timeline to timecode without any offsets or so. And then if, for example, song 1 starts at timecode 1 hour, you place a clip at 1 hour and everything works fine. So PIXERA just listen to this timecode, 1 hour, and it's synced. The second possibility is to have a timeline for each song. So you can, for each timeline, you can set a different timecode offset to the timeline. So for example, you have the first song starting at 1 hour, then you would say like create one timeline with an offset from of 1 hour, and then you can start at 0 every time, like at like time 0, programming their songs and so on. The problem with this workflow is, I worked like this before, but the problem a little bit with this workflow was that I had a German artist, a German rapper, and I was with him on tour the whole summer, and the rehearsals before a concert were like this. Oh, can we play a second verse from this song? Oh, stop, no, let's take the chorus from this song and so on. So the time code was completely jumping around. And you have in PIXERA the different options. What should happen if the time code is stopped? You can either set it to pause, to stop, or to continue. I would rather recommend everyone to have it to continue, because if, for example, Ableton is crashing or so on, then the content is still running. The problem then is in these rehearsals was, if he jumped around with the content, suddenly like 30 timelines were playing, because like you had to like just stop all timelines and shit, which song was it? This song, okay, and stop. It was okay, but especially when you play when you work with notch, and you have in each timeline a notch block, and 30 timelines are playing, you exactly know what happens. Then like nothing works anymore. So my workflow right now is Because, sorry, the first workflow, the negative thing of the first workflow is, if you have, for example, the last song starting at timecode 20 hours, then you have a 20-hour timeline, and you have to like scrub around as hell to find the songs, and it makes no sense. My workflow now is to do this with hot regions. So hot regions are kind of implemented in 2.0 and in 25.1, or even if in the newest 2.0 version, I don't really know. They implemented an offset per hot region. So, for example, here we have the first song, which is start nearly at 0. I think it starts at 1 second or so. And you see it here. It has a duration of 4 minutes and 52 seconds. So exactly this area is marked with a green sign, and this area adheres to the time code. And now you can set an offset per each hot region. So this first song, even if it's like placed on second 1 on the same timeline and we have no general offset, it adheres to the time code of 11 hours now. So it's really easy to just like hit all songs next to each other. You have a shorter timeline. I mean, normally the songs are between like 3 and 10 minutes or so. So if you have 20 songs, it's a very short timeline. You can like easily prepare, and as soon as you get the timecode times, you just tickle the timecode offset times in, and you're done. What's coming in the future is that you can choose if, for example, I don't know how they implement it, if with a right click or just like choose it. If you choose one hot region here, the timeline automatically jumps to this specific time, so that you directly like have a better overview of the structure of your songs and not have to like search it in the timeline. This is now not possible, but it comes in some of the next versions, releases, or so on. So back to this workflow, we have like a general timeline. I will like get rid of this test IMAC feed. So we have a general timeline which just listen to timecode. Sorry about the content. The content was not made by us. It's really like the guy, the rapper. He's a little bit, how I can say it?
It's some kind of a crazy guy, but so the content is always done by his best friend, and yeah. So they were sending like in the first time they were sending like GIFs and saying, okay, here you go, and well, yeah. I called Michael and said, can PIXERA play GIFs? And so PIXERA is not able to play GIFs. And Michael was strictly against calling PIXERA if they want to implement it. So that's why it's
I would
still
say, no,
not
I
working.
shame on myself if I call Jan and say, oh, can you please implement GIF playback? So, yeah, but doesn't matter right now. So this timeline generally adheres to timecode.
But it's a good example of why we used this workflow, because, I mean, as you see, it looks some kind of strange. So we have to have the ability of transforming this content or do something with it, because it mainly, the whole content was mainly only maybe gradients, just red colored PNGs or whatever. So it was it was quite obvious, so that we have to do something just to make it work, because with this content they gave to us, it was not possible to do a show. So that's why we choose this one.
So, and what I did create then is 2 more timelines on top of it. So the first one is a flash timeline, and the flash timeline includes just white squares, and like on each layer there is a basic color effect and a strobe effect. And if I go now to the DMX patch window again to show you what I've done, is that I just control the opacity, red, green, blue, strobe mix, strobe beat, speed and slope. So I have just like 8 or 7 DMX channels to control in the Lightning Desk, and that's it. And I created a layout view here exactly with the layer structure, and when I'm now like doing that, I can just do some creative stuff over it with just white flashing things over the whole stage. Or like if you want to like put it in red, I can just put it in red. So it was also not me who controlled these fixtures. It was the Lightning operator. I said to him, okay, let's patch like 20 new fixtures or so. You have the control of it. We can for surely speak together when we use it or so. Generally, he programs everything in the show file in parallel with the lightning things, with the lightning flashes and so on. And I did the other things on the main timeline with the content. The second timeline, what I've created, is a so-called color correction timeline. And the color correction timeline basically have also these white squares, with a slightly difference that the blend mode of these squares is set to multiply. So what I'm like controlling here now with DMX is not the opacity, because it makes no sense. It's also, saturation and value makes also no sense. I don't know why I did this, but it's like red, green, blue. Also the strobe thing. And the value, so the brightness of the layer. So what I can do now is, if I go to my like second layout view where I had these fixture, I can now color the content. It doesn't matter what is placed in the timeline beside, because thanks to the multiply effect, I can do exactly the same dimmer effects and so with the content. So the mixture of content, color correction timeline, and the flash timeline gave us the possibility to be as flexible as we can be with this shitty content to do a great show. Really, it's just like something. I would say we were more like a recycler there than like a playback machine. So like we try to do the best. So? A rubbish dump. A rubbish. So we tried to do the best of it. And this gives you a little bit the example that this hybrid workflow is, in my opinion, the best workflow with what you can use, because you have the, as Timo said, the advantages of both worlds. It's not working differently than a timeline workflow, just with the possibility that a lightning guy can control and do like these. I mean, these chaser, what I did now, try to program this on a timeline with keyframes. I think we are there next year till we have this done, like over like 4 songs. So, yeah?
If you, on your main timeline, when timecode jumps, does it crossfade or is that an option?
Right now, this is also a question we had like 2 weeks ago, and I had this question also. Right now, it like directly jumps to the time, but also this crossfading time will be implemented. And this will be also implemented in the very near future. This is nothing what you have to wait for like for 1 hour, for a year or so. I don't know if it's already done in 24.1 to the official release, but it's definitely very much requested and they will definitely implement it. But right now it's just like, yeah, jumping there. Yeah. Yes, so the very last thing what we want to show you before we like have lunch and have maybe some discussions in the afternoon.
Did you show all those new features from 25.1?
Oh, but yeah, you're completely right.
Yeah, but maybe let's come back to the hybrid workflow again, because I think so the way we work is we use Reaper as a audio software. We put in the music from the artist and the time code files, and then we'll put in some markers, and A friend of us, he wrote a software about where we can use subtracks so that we can have like a general marker timeline of musical events like chorus, verse, down part, whatever. And then we have like subtracks for some special instruments like a snare, like a 808 or whatever. So we want to do so. All those markers and all those naming will be then exported or imported into the GrandMA. And so the way we do it is we export those markers as well for me as a content designer. So we have the markers then in Premiere or After Effects. And we also import them into the media server itself so that we all have the same marker. So we know we don't have to scrub through the timeline. We know, okay, if we want to do something like we want to color the live feed red, for example, at the second verse, so then we all jump just to this marker. This marker you can see on your timeline, and then we're done.
I mean, basically in PIXERA, there's not marker, it's like play cues. It will implement it as play cues in generally, but yeah, that's the thing how it works. Like we all work with the same structure of the song.
Exactly.
Yeah, and for that, like there's a control module in PIXERA which called Reaper import, and so if you like export these markers as a CSV data, you can just easily import it to PIXERA and work with these play cues and with this marker in one system. Yeah, just for some new functionalities, or like who of you is already using PIXERA? Okay, do you already use multi-user with 2 directors? Okay, the problem right now was that PIXERA generally takes care about file distribution. So if you import a file on any of the directors in the system, PIXERA will automatically distribute the file to the output servers, to the clients, and to the other directors. So you don't have to take care about like that files have to be like replaced on a laptop and on a computer and anything else. PIXERA do anything for you. Right now, it is in 2.0, it is like that PIXERA will create a RX cache folder on the receiving machine and put all files in this RX cache folder in a special like file structure which is from the original machine. But on my original machine, I don't have this RX cache folder. I have thus this content folder where I place content in. I mean, there's a RX cache preview folder. These are the so-called preview files, which I mentioned before. But there's no RX cache folder at all. There's just this content folder. Just imagine if you have 2 directors and you have 2 operators which are working at the same time, and one is copying files from this machine to this machine, and one operator is copying files from this machine to this machine, then both machines have this RX cache folder and the original file folder, and some files are pushed, which are pushed from this machine to this machine, are placed in the original folder, and some files are in the RX cache folder. This was very disgusting because like you lost a very big overview about everything. So in PIXERA 25.1, there's a new functionality called custom asset root, so you can decide what is the RX cache folder. So in my opinion, it's every time the content folder, the content. So, and if all directors have these settings the same, custom asset root, the content, all files will be then like distributed to this content folder and not anymore to the RX cache folder. So all files are in the exact same file structure on all machines. Yeah. Then what's new in 25.1, till 2.0 it was like that Notch, NDI, Unreal and other things were played back in the render engine of PIXERA itself. So if Notch itself crashed, PIXERA crashed as well. Not PIXERA, sorry, the render engine. Not PIXERA, the user interface, but the output engine. PIXERA implemented now a new render, so-called render bridge, right? It's a render bridge. It's like really an external process, which is like started automatically in the background. And all third-party softwares as NDI, Notch, and Unreal will be played back in these external processes, so that if something's happened with Notch, PIXERA still is running and you don't like see any like issue. And the next time when you start a Notch block, it will automatically in the background restart this external process that you will like be aware of that everything is running fine. And it is also like, I think, not open source, but the API is open for like other things like Touch Designer or so on. So if, yeah, exactly.
You want to show the notched example?
Yeah. So,
Does it go to black or does it fade to alpha? That way you have
that's a good question. I think it's alpha. I think it should be alpha because right now it's also alpha if no notch dongle is inside the computer, so notch couldn't be started, then it's alpha. I think it's alpha. Yeah. 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 It should be alpha. So just a small like notch example from PIXERA. Here is Timo created a notch block, just like a funny one with like toilet paper moving lights. And what we wanted to show you that also in the same timeline you can control things on DMX if you like, so you can really choose which parameters are controlled. So in this case, we did a chaser with real lightning in the notch block, and you see there are like Titan tubes. And you see I think there is now a delay, but this delay comes more from that we're going out of this server into an Aquilon, analog wave VIO, from the VIO outside in another PIXERA, capturing it and playing it back then on the wall. But there is no real latency between real light and notch itself. And if we choose the other notch block, what Timo created, this is something like a big mirror. It's a church, and there is a big mirror ball in this church, and this ball destroys the church. And this ball is then controllable by any like input device. So for example, here it's just like a DMX desk, but you can for sure like do it with a like tracking system, with a like MIDI board, with I don't know, sensors or so on. And this all is rendered like in real time now in Notch without any problem, and with the input from outside. You now may see that PIXERA is getting hot. So that's what I really wanted to show you, that now the user interface is rendering the notch block. I can switch back to the user interface and you see it. So the user interface is rendering the notch block and the output server itself. So now also the PX2 have to work for this notch block. So if we then just say, oh, we want to disable this notch block, then the user interface won't render it anymore. On the output, it will still like be shown, and this will save a lot of resource power for like a smaller computer for the user interface. Because if you now look to the PIXERA hub, like the PX, this one is the PX4, it's like on a usage from like 36% because it's the A6008 generation. And the A4000 for this is nearly at 100 because an A4000 is not really made for playing back notch. But I mean, even if the usage on this graphic card is on 100%, the output will be like played back accurately without any problems. Just the user interface will get in problems. And yeah, normally if everything is programmed, you can tickle these things, don't render in preview because you don't need it in a preview like rendering notch.
Director machine, is there an not rendering full resolution, like your director machine isn't rendering every piece of content. It's rendering the proxy content for your program one.
Instead of notch, or?
Well, no, it's just content one.
No, I mean, these are the preview files, and you can choose the preview files. It's what I mentioned before in the preview. Like the render machine really just plays back these preview file, and you can set the resolution to original, high, medium, thumbnail, or placeholder. So you can choose whatever you want. So if you really have a very, very, very bad computer, you can just like choose thumbnail, and it will just play back one piece of picture.
So it mainly generates its own proxy files, right?
Yeah. And especially like what I mentioned before, that I have like normally a 2-director system, main and backup. And I have a 3rd director just for like content distribution, and also PIXERA control is running on this to have like a show control. I disable workspace entering. I don't like here for multi-user and so on. Because this laptop should just take care of show control, content distribution, and nothing else. And yeah, you are very flexible in like deciding what a director really have to do and should do, and yeah.
Is it just constantly running a proxy maker in the background? Like, how do you do that? Just only when you import it. So on the initial import, it makes proxies out of every.
Exactly.
Status of that in the resource.
Yeah. You see here, if you like choose one content here, let's see, where is this one content? I just imported one. Here in the asset, you see that the content is distributed to the both like output machines. It is on the local machine, and the preview file is already like being created. And this is the process. If this yellow like line is full, then you're playing back the preview file. And as long as you don't have preview files available, it will play back also the original file. So like that you still see something, because just like playing back one content is normally no problem for a director. And as soon as the preview file is ready, then it will take over the preview.
Can you explain manager caching too? Like bypassing the manager if you're using network attached storage?
Yes, so you can especially, so on a director, you don't have to have the original file. So in general, I'm just working with this laptop thing, that the laptop distribute content to the both directors, and from the both directors, they distribute the content to the client itself. In my opinion, that makes sense, because my shows are normally not over like 4 terabyte size or 8 terabyte size, and our PIXERA tools have 8 terabyte in it, so by far enough. But the first thing what you can do, if you, for example, have a small laptop or so, you can, after like the original file is distributed to the clients, you can delete the original file, because PIXERA created the preview file, PIXERA distributed the original file to the client, and after that, you don't need the original file anymore on your laptop, you can delete it. That's the first way how to save space. The second way is, in resource distribution, you can also add a network drive, so that the content is grabbed from a network drive, and then you have like client and manager caching. So manager caching is basically that the manager grabs this content for playing it back, and the client caching is that the client grabs the content back. And you have different opportunities. For example, that the initial role for distribution setting is on use in timeline. So if you have, like, for example, 8 output servers with a very, very, very big like canvas, or more than one display or so, and for example, content 1 to 4 have to played back on this server. Content 5 to 8 have just to be played back on this server, then PIXERA automatically like recognize, okay, I'm using just this content on the server, so I also just need to grab this content from the NAS, from the network drive, And so even if you have like just 4 terabyte on an output server and you just have to play back like 2 outputs and you have a whole system with 20 servers or so, your disk space will be very low. It's that what you mentioned, right, Connor?
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time to break for lunch.
Yes? I mean, in general, from our side, just to have some closing words, this is from our presentation. But we will have lunch now, and after lunch, you can ask us many things. We can have like a small discussion round. If there's some questions, we can go here. I can show you a little bit in the different show files and so on. And like we can also talk during lunch. And I hope that I or Connor and Miles can like answer any question. Thank you from now. Thank you.